hiding from a record. With a record like hers, I would be hiding too, because quite frankly, she doesn't listen to us. She's forgotten that this body of water out here is Tampa Bay. It is not San Francisco Bay. But to go back more to your point, if you can help me put a few more dollars in the bank, what I'm going to do is I'm buying billboards. Our first billboard goes up on the I-275 corridor next Monday. I believe it's Monday the 11th. And it's in a strategic location. 100,000+ cars pass by that billboard each and every week. We're putting another one up on Bush Boulevard right next to 275. It's going to have a picture of me in uniform. It's going to say American Patriot. And then it's going to have this right here, Mike Prendergast, U.S. Congress. And it's going to send a very powerful message that you've got someone here that's willing to listen to you and go to work for you. Not turn your back when the chips are down and when people are mad. And you should never put yourself in that position in the first place if you listen to the people and you represent their will. But she does what Kathy Castor does exactly what Nancy Pelosi tells her to do. Did I answer all your questions?
I think so.
We're working hard. And, we're going to try. The thing that I've got is my next big charge. A few more TV ads is I got to buy radio, and we've got to go beyond 970, 860, and 820 because that's our conservative base. We've got to go out and get some of those more moderate stations, and I'd love to put some ads on Mother the Love Sponge, even though it's a little controversial. That's a huge demographic, a huge demographic, and we've got all our political endorsements, which today we had an endorsement go out, and we announced that Jeb Bush endorsed it. A nice statement from Jeb. Mother the Love Sponge endorsed as well. Todd Schnitt, Cigar Dave, Jack Harris, and Ted Webb. So we've got all those guys that are out there behind us. I think I saw a question over here, and then I'll come back over to you, Mike.
I have a question. I think it's probably far more dangerous to our liberty and our prosperity than the car. What's your position on federal and state government employee unions? Because in my opinion, they have their tentacles around most elected candidates on the other side, and maybe on this side also.
And
it's not a trick question.
No. There was a time when unions served a great purpose, but as a state government employee or a federal government employee, you take the same oath of office that a member of Congress takes. You take the same oath of office almost verbatim that an American soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, or Coast Guardsman takes. And your first loyalty, your first duty is to that state or the nation. And if you're a state official, you actually take an oath to the U.S. Constitution and to the state. I have a real hard time wrestling with it. I've dealt with it as a guy who had some union employees in the federal government come up and want to challenge some decisions we made when we fired some federal government employees. And we won the day because we were right. We read the law, we understood what was in it. But we also understood what the principles and values were of the organization, and we stood by those principles and values. Thanks.
So would you support delegalizing federal unions?
I would say I'd have to look at the law first to see what we could work on. I'm not an expert on the laws when it comes to the unions. I know that the Hatch Act prohibits us from doing a lot of stuff in the federal level, and I'm sure that there's a similar state law here in the state of Florida.
Well, the dynamics are, and I don't have to explain this to you or probably anyone here, but the dynamics are the unions insist on higher wages and more benefits.
Yeah.
And then they skim from union dues, and it flows back in to the elected officials.
It does.
That's not their money, it's our money.
Yeah, you won't see much of us getting any union money.
But my point is, it's a corrupted system.
Yeah.
That, in my opinion, we shouldn't countenance.
Yeah.
If this is truly a revolution to the people, this election, I think things like that should be addressed.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to grab that issue and study it and then figure out what's the best way to tackle it. And to come back to, are there any union members from private unions here?
I'm a former labor union, 402.
Okay.
402 at UAW, LCIO, auto workers.
But here's the thing that I struggled with mightily when the auto industry was collapsing around its axles back in 2008 and 2009. If the unions were so good for their employees. Why did GM have to go out there and be bailed out by the federal government?
Those are private sector unions, and I understand.
Right, but it's different, but
Your point on the oath is very well made, and I think that is the point of distinction. For your information, I was Commissioner of Labor in Kentucky for some time, so I know unions from the inside out.
yeah.
And
I'd like to make
I'm
sure.
particularly familiar with the SEIU and what they do.
Yeah. You saw what they did on August 6th.
I was there.
Were you on the outside?
I was on the outside,
So were some of the other people in this room.
which is one reason I'm here, so.
Yes, sir.
Mike, in the early 60s, I was part of the destruction of this country, being a labor union kid growing up and working and being involved with UAW up in Ohio. International Harvester, where I work, our clock number was 11,206. There's less than 500 people working there today, and 300 of the UAW Local 402 people are bowling their necks right now to talk about striking when they're only putting out about 34 vehicles a day at a NAVSTAR logo. The unions have died starting with 1970, actually 1960. Union membership has plummeted. The union leaders today are freaked out. That's why they had that assembly in Washington at the monument on Saturday. They're really freaked out because union membership is not strong. The UAW at one time had well over 400,000 members in the auto world, just in the auto world.
But by contrast, the government employee unions have lost.
Yeah.
That's a little different animal.
They have.
Different animal, it's more political.
It's far more political, though, on the government employee unions.
Right.
It really is.
Right. But his point was well taken, the fact that the union dues, and when you want to strike, I've been through two of them, one was 6 months, you never win. The reason is, you're without income all during that time frame. If you get $1 or 50 cents an hour pay raise, you're still way behind because you lost all that payroll. The other strike was 6 weeks, but I've been through sawed-off axe handles and sawed-off sledgehammers and goon squads and scabs. I can tell you what it was like back in the late 50s and the early 60s. I'm telling you, it was tough. It is not that way today. They don't have the solidarity today, and I think there's a lot of labor union people as well as Democrats that are going to swing vote this time. I think there's a lot of Democrats that are going to vote. I voted for Kathy Castro as a registered Democrat in 2004. Bill Nelson, I wrote him a letter in 2008 when they supported this Obama health care and told her I was going to make a career out of her. I have henceforth have a GOP registration card in my pocket and still have my Dem card in my pocket. And the reason I'm voting for Mike is the fact I don't want a yes man to go to Washington. I want a man like Harry Truman. That was a true Democrat. I want him to go down there and step on some people's toes like Ross Perot would do. Step on some toes. Don't be party line, because the GOP is not, Jesus H. Christ. I don't want to step on him. The point is, we all have dirty laundry on both sides of the tracks. But I want Mike Prendergast to go down there with an open mind, not a tainted hack politician, and retire on the job and try to pad his payroll. This is what Kathy did, and Kathy, every time Nancy turns, Kathy turns. We don't need rubber stamp politicians. I want you to go down to Washington and ruffle some feathers down there. I know you will do that, because you're not looking for a paycheck.
No, my loyalty's to all of you, because I have to come back home here. And I just told, I was just at a meeting in downtown Tampa with about 150 people at a firm in downtown Tampa. And I said, at the end of the day, when you look at what our founding fathers said as their example, it's to be a servant leader for the good of the country. So that the things that you were able to achieve because of the hard fight for those patriots who came here and forged this country out of a wilderness, you owe it to the next generation to at least afford them the same opportunity. That's why people came to America in the first place. So we have to work hard at that. And don't forget where you came from. And so, people said to Naomi, hey, are you guys going to buy a house? No. I'm not a limousine liberal. I don't live down here off of Bayshore like Kathy Castro does. I've worked real hard, and I've saved enough money to put a roof over our heads. We've got 2 great kids that are out in the world and on their own. We've got 4 grandkids. But our country is under attack. And this Constitution continually gets trampled upon. and pretty soon it's gonna wear out the paper that it's printed on. And the United States of America and our reputation is not gonna be worth the paper it's printed on if we don't have principled, conservative leaders fighting for our rights, fighting for our liberty up in Washington, D.C., who believe that this document is one of the greatest documents ever written by the hands of a man and carried forward for more than 234 years so that freedom endures and freedom is passed on to those next generation of men and women. Like that little baby back there that just walked out of the room, and these young men that are sitting back here wearing their scout uniform. Yes, sir.
Question for you, Mike. After you win next year, how many of these town halls can you promise us that you'll have so that we can engage you, hold you accountable, make sure you're doing the right thing?
I have pledged publicly and repeatedly that at a minimum I will do one monthly public town hall meeting.
Once a month?
Once a month.
Wow. Okay.
The members don't stay up there that long, except for the ones that are running the cocktail circuit. Well, I don't need to run the cocktail circuit. I need to be down here with you. Like I said, I need to tell you what's going on and keep you informed. And when there's something that's like real time, if I'm coming home every Friday and working hard in the district and saying, hey, what's going on, you guys? I go back up to Washington on Monday night or Tuesday morning, and then I've got the most current stuff right here. And then I don't forget that. I'm not going to be trapped by that. So once a month at a minimum, and we just got to see how things are going, because I don't want you guys to get tired of me too if I do it every week. But the other thing that we've talked about is I learned as a young man in the Army, an open door policy. The commander's door in the military organizations that I was in from the time I was a private until I walked out of Dave Petraeus' organization officially on September 30th, 2009. Commanders always leave the door open for their soldiers, so the soldiers can come in and ask questions. And that's what a good leader should do for you in Washington, D.C. The door should always be open. Now, you may not be able to get into me right at 5 o'clock every day, but you can come in and you can grab one of my staff members and say, Mike needs to know about this.
Let me ask you something else. Have you began drafting or authoring any legislation or sponsoring any legislation that Republicans may, assuming they win the House, that they can put on the floor right away? Anything in the work, or the Paul Ryan plan I'm thinking about? Repealing Obamacare or something
well,
like that?
my number one pledge that I've made repeatedly since January, I signed this pledge and it's on Americans for Prosperity's website, I think it is, was to repeal Obamacare. I believe it's unconstitutional.
Is someone working on that? Is someone drafting that?
There is something in the draft to put that together so that we can repeal Obamacare. Now, you know it takes a 2/3 majority of the House, a 2/3 majority of the Senate to override a presidential veto. But what I remind folks about every day when we're out on the trail, what we can do is if we take the House, we can vote to not put any dollars against it. Because there are authorizing committees in the House, and there's one big appropriations committee in the House. No dollar of your money gets spent without an authorization bill passing through the House and an appropriations bill passing through the House. So even if we don't take back the Senate, and we can't have that 2/3 majority, we can vote to defund it.
Can
It
you
happens
fund
all.
stimulus too?
Well, a lot of that's been spent, but not all of it. And one of the big fears that we've had is at the 11th hour here, the last couple of weeks of the campaign, is that there will be bags of money flying into those districts all around the country where a Democrat's in trouble and a Democrat's at risk of losing that seat. So, you know, that we gotta peel that onion back a little bit more and see how bad it really smells at the end of the day, because we know that all of the stimulus money hasn't been spent yet. But there's a phenomenal opportunity there.